I'm Cath. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to this video, which is all about my top dress patterns for sewing with woven viscose. Woven viscose is such a lovely material for dressmaking. I think it's lovely and lightweight and swishy and drapey, which makes it perfect for sewing up into dresses. And you can often get it in lovely prints too, which I really enjoy choosing. So in this video, I'm going to be talking through all of my favourite dress patterns that I think work really well paired with woven viscose. And all of these patterns I've made myself, so I've got examples of each pattern so I can show you the dresses I've made, and I'll pop some pictures up too as I go through. And I've got a bit of a mix of patterns for different seasons, so I've got some very summery dress patterns, a couple of wintry dress patterns, and also a couple of patterns that I think are great all year rounders that kind of work with all the seasons. So I'm really looking forward to sharing all of my favourite patterns for sewing with woven viscose. So let's get started. So my first top dress pattern for sewing with viscose is a really summery one. It's this pattern here, the Charlie Kaftan pattern by Closet Core. And this is such a great pattern for hot weather because it keeps you lovely and cool, but also a little bit covered up too. I'll show you the line drawings. The dress has a sort of deep V at the front of the bodice, and under that there's a little panel here, and you can either make a version that has sort of soft gathering underneath the panel, or you can make this more architectural version that has pleats underneath. And it's a dress that you can just pull on over your head. There are no zips or fastenings, but you can add optional waist ties to cinch it in a little bit around the middle. And it's got two sleeve options built in, quite a wide loose sleeve and also a slightly more higher cut one that adds a bit more coverage. And as you can see, you can make it as an above the knee length or a full maxi length swishy dress. And I think the version that has a soft gathering underneath the bodice panel works particularly well in a viscose. I guess this version with the architectural pleats is designed to hold its shape a bit more, so it might work well in a fabric that's a little less drapey and has a bit more structure, but I think viscose is perfect for this version here and this shorter version here too. And I've actually made a combination of these two versions. I've made the shorter version with a soft gathering and with added waist ties. So I'll show you my two versions, which I really love and I reach for every summer when the weather's warm. Here is my first version. This is my oldest version that I made a few years ago now, but I still love to wear it. I made it in this lovely viscose challis fabric that's in this really deep, sort of almost navy blue, with pretty flowers in whites and corals and lighter blue colour. I love this fabric and I thought the large print would work really well for the Charlie Kaftan. As you can see, it's got the panel on the bodice and little waist ties to cinch in, and it comes to just above my knees, and it's got pockets too, which is always a bonus. I think it works so well in viscose and it always keeps me nice and cool on hot summer's days. So that is my first version, and then my second version, which I made a little bit more recently, is here. And I made this in a gorgeous viscose, and this one is one that came from Atelier Dupe, who have lovely quality viscose fabrics. I love the colours in this one, this deep green background and this sort of tropical print on it. And again, I made a version with a little panel, soft gathering underneath and the cinching in ties around the waist. And on both versions I went for the wider sleeve, which keeps me lovely and cool in summer. So again, this is a shorter version because I had that much fabric to work with. I do think it'll be lovely in the longer version. I'd love to make a full length maxi version at some point though. And there are a few fiddly bits to this sewing pattern, particularly around sewing the panel in and also the facing around the neck. But I find Closet Core has a great online tutorial series for making the Charlie Kaftan with loads of detailed information about each stage, so it's definitely worth checking that out if you're interested in sewing this pattern. But it is a lovely summery sewing pattern, perfect for a lightweight drapey fabric. I'll put a photo up of this version so you can see what it looks like on. So that is my first top dress pattern for sewing with viscose. So the next pattern that I wanted to talk about is another really summery one. And this one is a simplicity pattern, and it's this one here. But actually I have a very old pattern envelope for this one, and the name of the pattern has now changed, so it's now the S9125, and I will link it down below. It's a really pretty summery dress pattern that works well in a lightweight drapey fabric. And the version I've made is this version here, version C. And I think it's got some really pretty details to it. So it's a maxi length dress which has got a slit in the skirt to make sure it's comfortable to walk in because it's not a very full skirt. Then it's got a blousey bodice which is pulled in at the waist by an elastic channel. And then the really pretty detail I think on this dress that makes it a bit unusual is the neckline. It's got a sort of halter neck style neckline and you sew this neckline by sewing a channel into the top of the bodice panel pieces, and then you add a tie that goes all the way around the front and back pieces, catch them all, and you secure it by tying a little bow with a tie, and it creates a really pretty halter neck style neckline. There is another bodice version built into this pattern too, which I think would also work really well in a drapey fabric for this V-neck bodice that has sort of fabric gathered into shoulder straps. And you can make this one as a jumpsuit as well as a dress, but I've made the dress version. I really love it. And I'll show you my version so you can see that neckline detail a bit more clearly. So here is my version, and I made it in this lovely viscose fabric that I got a few years ago from First for Fabrics. I love the print on this one. I love the colours, the sort of deep green and the pink and the white. So you can see the halter neck style top there. It's got the little bow that you can tie at the front and the back, and the bodice panels all gathered with this tie into this halter neck shape. Then it's got the elasticated channel around the waist, which makes it nice and comfy, and also it means you can just pull this one on so there are no zips or fastenings again. And then I went for the full maxi length skirt, and you can see the little slit there down the front. And it's just really nice and comfy to wear. I actually have made two versions of this dress, but the first version I made when I was very new to sewing, and I made it in a cotton poplin fabric, and it really didn't suit this pattern at all. The bodice didn't hang right, it just didn't work, so I kind of rectified it by making the second version of viscose, and it works so much better like that. And I love this dress. It's so lovely and summery and swishy. I think it's perfect for on holiday by a beach too, and I'll put a picture up so you can see what it looks like on. I would like to make another version. It is one of Simplicity's easy to sew patterns, and I did find it came together really nicely, and all the finishing's really nice too, like the armholes are finished with bias binding, so it has a lovely finish to it. So I definitely recommend this pattern, and it's got loads of different versions built in too. I think all of the different versions would work great in a viscose challis, all on. So sticking with the theme of more summery dress patterns that work really well with woven viscose, I've got another closet core pattern to share that I think is a perfect pairing for a lovely drapey fabric, and it is this pattern here, their LED wrap dress pattern. So Closet Core described this pattern as a modern take on a classic wrap dress, and I think it's one of those dress patterns that you could dress up or down depending on which options you choose, because there are a few different options built in. I'll show you the line drawings. So it's a classic wrap dress that's secured by the waist tie around the middle, and you can make it either as a maxi length or a midi length or a knee length. And there are two different sleeve options built in, a classic short sleeve or this longer, more full sleeve that I think gives it a more formal look and be perfect for, say, if you're going to a wedding or something like that. And you can add on optional patch pockets, although I don't think they would work very well in a viscose fabric personally. I think they just drag down and probably wouldn't be that practical. But it's a lovely pattern, it comes together really nicely, and it's got this lovely full swishy skirt that's perfect for pairing with a drapey fabric. And I've made one version to date, although I've got another one that I'm actually sewing at the moment. But this is my completed version here. And I made this in a lovely viscose fabric that I got a while back from Rainbow Fabrics. Although it's got a black base, I think it's got quite a summery vibe to it, because when you look close at the print, it's got strawberries on as well as pretty little summery flowers. And I do love a ditzy floral print, and I thought it would be perfect for this wrap dress. So this is my LED wrap dress. I went for the short sleeve version because I wanted to have a bit more of a relaxed vibe to this one. I wanted it to be a dress I could wear as a day dress rather than to a formal occasion. Although I do think if I paired it with some heels, it actually would work really well for a wedding too. And so I went for the midi length, although I lengthened it slightly to make it a slightly longer midi. And then as you can see, it's secured around the middle by this tie. And then the bodice has this really pretty detail to it. It might be hard to see in this fabric. The front and back both have pleats built into the bodice, which gives it a lovely blousey feel to it and adds a really nice shape at the front and also at the back. Might be quite hard to see there. So it was a really nice sew. I just switched it up slightly, and instead of using a facing around the neckline that the pattern includes, I changed it for a visible bias binding. I just preferred the look of that, and I prefer the feel of a bias binding than a facing. But other than that, I sewed it up per the pattern. It came together really nicely, and I really enjoy wearing this one. I think historically I haven't really worn many wrap dresses. I wasn't sure they suited me, but actually I love the LED wrap dress, so I'm really glad I gave it a try. And I put a picture up so you can see what it looks like on. It's really lovely and comfy to wear, and it's so nice and floaty in this lovely lightweight viscose fabric. So the next pattern that I've got to share is one that I think is perfect for if you're quite new to sewing with viscose and you're a bit nervous about sewing with a more slippery fabric, and you want a pattern that is quite simple, sews up really nicely with really clear instructions to hold your hand through the whole process and give you more confidence about sewing with a slightly more slippery, tricky fabric. And it's a pattern I really love and really enjoy sewing and wearing, and I think it might be the first pattern I tried sewing with viscose actually, and it came together really nicely. And it is this pattern here. It is the Stevie Top and Tunic pattern by Tilly and the Buttons. So it's one of Tilly and the Buttons sewing patterns for beginners, and Tilly and the Buttons patterns generally I find have really nice clear colour photographs and really clear instructions, and I remember my first Stevie coming together really nicely. So I'll show you the line drawings. You can make it either as a top or this tunic dress, and it's got a quite straight fit to it, and it's quite a simple one just to pull over your head, and you can secure at the back either with a little tie fastening in the middle of this back yoke or a little hoop and button. You can add on optional sleeve cuffs, and it's just quite a simple shape to it that I think also lends itself really well to showcasing like a fun viscose print. And you can make the Stevie in lots of different fabrics, but I think it's lovely in a viscose because it has quite a straight shape to it. I think the viscose adds a bit of softness to it, and yeah, it comes together really nicely. And I've got a couple of versions to share of the dress. I've also made a few tops, and I think pretty much all my versions I've made in a viscose fabric actually. This is my oldest version here. So yeah, this fabric is very old now. It's a very old Dashwood viscose. I really like the navy blue colour and the pretty sort of colours of the little spots on this one. And yes, yeah, so it's a Stevie tunic dress. I added the tie at the back here, as you can see. I've also got on the hanger here a waist tie, and sometimes I like to wear this dress with a little waist tie to cinch it in at the bit of the waist. When it's a really hot day, I don't bother wearing the waist tie. I just love it to have it really cool and swishy, but yeah, I do like to cinch it in at the waist sometimes. And I've got a picture of me wearing this one, so I'll put it up so you can see what it looks like on. That's my first Stevie dress, and my second one is here. I made this one a bit more recently using a lovely viscose that came from Selfmade. If this one's in stock still, I'll link it down below. I'm not sure if it is or not, but it's a lovely lightweight viscose, really floaty, with this really pretty floral print on. It's got a lovely sort of almost royal blue background. I think it's coming across in the camera a bit darker than it actually is. And then I love the flowers, all these really pretty flowers with oranges in them. And yeah, I thought it was quite a dreamy floral print, this one. So again, it's just a lovely straight swishy dress that shows off this lovely print nicely. And again, for my second version, I got the tie at the back, and I did add, again, make a little waist tie again, and sometimes I like to cinch this one in too. So I'll put a picture up of this one too, so you can see it on. I just think the Stevie is such a nice one to sew. It comes together really nicely, really easy to pull on, and yeah, I love it in a viscose fabric. So the next dress pattern that I wanted to share that I think works really well with a woven viscose is a pattern that I think is a bit of an all year rounder, so I think you can style this pattern to work well through all of the different seasons. And I'm actually wearing one of my versions of this dress pattern today. I've got two versions, this is one of them. And the pattern is this one here. It is the Shelby Dress and Romper pattern by True Bias. I think it's a really cute dress pattern with some really pretty details and a 90s vibe to it. I'll show you the line drawings. It's got this V-neck and button down front, and you can make it either as a mini length or a maxi length. And it's got this panelled bodice, and the panelling pieces go all the way down the dress, so you end up with this princess seamed bodice. And then it sort of flares out into quite a swishy skirt, and I think that swishy skirt is the bit that works particularly well with a viscose fabric. And you can make it with either a cap sleeve or a traditional short sleeve, and it's got this waist ties at the back to sort of cinch it in a little bit at the waist. And it's a really nice pattern that sews up really nicely. It's a really comfy one to wear. And the version I'm wearing today, I made in a viscose twill fabric. I really love this fabric. I love the black base and the sort of soft pink tones with the sort of splodges on it. And this is my version I love to style up in winter as well as summer. So I often wear this one in winter with some black tights and a chunky cardigan. And for both my versions of the Shelby dress, I went for the traditional short sleeve rather than the cap sleeve. And I also went for an above the knee length on both versions. When I originally traced the pattern piece out, I traced out the mini length, but when I held it up against me, it looked like it would come up a little bit too short. So I think I lengthened both versions by a couple of inches. But I'll pop up a picture of me wearing this version so you can see what it looks like on. And then my second version of the Shelby is a very summery one. I think this one is one I wear pretty much exclusively in summer. So here is my second version. And I made this one in a very lightweight, delicate, floaty viscose fabric, which is really lovely. It's got this red base and then this daisy print and like a ditzy floral all over it. And I added on little white buttons to match the white petals of the daisies. So this is my second version. You can see it's got the princess seams down the front, which adds a really lovely shape. And it's got the waist ties at the back to cinch it in a bit. Because the Shelby bodice isn't super fitted, it has got a bit of a loose, relaxed feel to it, although it does have a lovely shape with the princess seams. So it's nice to be able to cinch in a bit at the waist. And then as you can see, the skirt is lovely and full and swishy. Yeah, it's just a lovely dress pattern, really comfy to wear and definitely works perfectly with the woven viscose. So my next top dress pattern for sewing with woven viscose is another pattern that I think is a great all year rounder. And it's this pattern here, the Lotta dress pattern by Tilly and the Buttons. And it's another one of Tilly's patterns for beginners, so a great one to start with if you're new to sewing viscose. And what's cool about this pattern actually is you can either make it in a woven fabric or a stretch fabric, which I think is quite unusual for sewing patterns, but I think it does work particularly well in a woven viscose. But I'll show you the line drawings. So the Lotta has quite a blousy bodice and then the waist is pulled in by an elastic channel. And it's got a really full swishy skirt that you can make either in a above the knee length or a midi length. And then you can either make it as a short sleeve version with these grown on sleeves or a long sleeve version, and then you get a sort of dropped shoulder. And it's got quite a wide neckline, so you can just pull it on over your head. So there are no zips and fastenings, it's just cinched in or sort of pulled into the waist by the elastic. And it comes together really nicely with the Lotta, and I think because of the full skirt and the blousy bodice, it works really well in a soft drapey fabric like a viscose. So here is my Lotta dress, and I really love this dress. I love the viscose fabric I've used for this one. It's a really pretty viscose challis that came from Rainbow Fabrics, I think a couple of years ago now. But I just think the colours in this one are so pretty. It's another ditzy floral, which I do love. I love the soft pinks and lavenders in this one. I think it's such a pretty fabric. And you can see the movement in the fabric and how it works so well with the blousy Lotta bodice. So as you can see, my Lotta has the short sleeves, and I went for the above the knee length skirt, and it's just a really nice, easy to wear dress. I could just pull it on over my head and go, and it works really well as a summer dress just on its own. But I also, similar to the Shelby, I love styling this one in winter with some nice cozy tights, and I've got a pink knitted cardigan that I made that's nice and chunky that tones in really nicely with the pink flowers, and I love to wear it in winter with that cozy cardigan on top too. So yeah, that is my one Lotta dress. I really should revisit this pattern. And I'll put a picture up so you can see what it looks like on. And I've also got a picture of me wearing it with that cozy hand knitted cardigan, so you can see how it looks styled for winter too. So yeah, that's the Lotta dress pattern. I would like to give it a go in jersey, but I do think with the blousy bodice and the swishy skirt, it is a great match for a woven viscose fabric. So I'm now moving on to some more wintry dress patterns that I think work great paired with the woven viscose fabric. And the first one I wanted to talk about is this pattern here, the Davenport Dress pattern by Friday Pattern Co. This is a really pretty dress pattern that's got a lot going on, and I think because there's loads of gathering and ruffles on this one, it works really well with a very lightweight drapey fabric. So it's got a blousy bodice, the Davenport Dress, which is gathered in or sort of pulled in at the waist with a drawstring tie. And then you can pull it on over your head because although the neckline isn't that wide, it's got a piece of elastic at the front which pulls in the front of the bodice and gives a bit of extra sort of gathering here. Then it's got this yoke with another bit of gathering at the back. It's got these little flutter shoulder details, quite a full sleeves with more gathering elastic. I think it's got elastic on the cuffs and little ruffle at the bottom, and then a two-tier skirt, and it's got pockets as well. So lots going on this dress. And actually I've made two versions of the Davenport dress, and the first version I made in a cotton lawn, which is lovely and lightweight but had a bit more crispness to it. And I didn't feel that comfortable wearing my cotton lawn Davenport dress. It just didn't feel like the best match for the pattern for me. So I haven't got that dress anymore, but I did go on to try the dress again in a viscose fabric, which I felt worked a lot better and I feel a lot more comfortable, and I really love this dress. So here is my Davenport dress that I made in viscose fabric. And I really love this dress. I really enjoy wearing it in cooler weather. So as you can see, I made it in this really pretty swishy viscose that has this black base and this ditzy floral print on. So it's got a sort of monochromatic vibe, this one. You can see it's got this lovely gathering at the front with the elastic at the top here. And I've got a little shoulder flutter detail, which I think is quite soft in a viscose, and it kind of drapes nicely there. And then it's got the waist tie or the sort of drawstring in the middle, you can see just about there. and the 2 tiers on the skirt, which makes it lovely and swishy. The one main change I made from the pattern for my Davenport dress is to bring in the sleeves and make them a lot narrower, just because I felt that suited me a bit better. And I also went for a simple elastic cuff rather than an extra ruffle, just because for me I thought that was one ruffle too many. But yeah, I really love this dress. It definitely feels a lot more comfortable to wear than my version in the cotton lawn did. And I'll put a picture up so you can see what it looks like on. It's such a nice winter dress with such pretty details, but I think the viscose softens the whole look, so it feels quite swishy and feminine, this one. So my next more wintry dress pattern that I think works great with a woven viscose is this pattern here. It is the Cassie AP Dress pattern by I Am Patterns. And I had to include this pattern in this video because it is my go-to winter day dress pattern. I find it really comfy and easy to wear. I think it's got a really cute style to it too, and I do think it works so well in a woven viscose fabric. So it's quite a relaxed baby doll style dress with a gathered skirt and a raglan sleeve, and it's got quite a wide neckline, so you can just pull it on over your head. There are no zips or fastenings, so it all sews together quite quickly too. And then I really like the sleeve shape as well to this dress. It's got this bat wing sleeve, which I think is a really interesting detail. And the whole vibe of this dress is quite oversized, baby doll, relaxed, easy to wear. And I've made a couple of versions. Actually, I've made more than a couple of versions of this pattern. I've made a few versions, but I've got a couple of favourite versions here to show you in a woven viscose fabric. And for both versions, I've pretty much made the dress per the pattern envelope. Only I've taken a couple of inches off the length, because I remember when I made my first version, it came up a little bit too long and felt like it was wearing me. And by taking off a little bit of length, it felt like it lifted it a little bit. So I'll show you a couple of my versions in a viscose fabric here. Firstly, this version here I made in this lovely viscose that has a base that's almost like a very deep purpley blue colour. And it's got this geometric floral print on, which I think is really interesting, with these pops of pink, which I really liked. So that is one of my versions. You can see the bat wing there. It's got a lovely gathered skirt, and it's lovely and swishy and lightweight to sew. I think if you made this dress in a more bulky or more crisp fabric, it might feel a little bit too bulky and oversized, but I think in a viscose the lovely drape is just right. So that's my first version I've got to share, and I'll put a picture up of me wearing that version. And then I've got another version to share here too, and this one I made in a lovely viscose lawn fabric, which was some dead stock fabric that I got from Sew Me Sunshine a few years ago. And I think this might be my favourite Cassie AP dress because I just love the colours in this one. I think they're a bit unusual and they're really autumnal, I think. So it's got this little beigey browny colour flower along with the sort of purpley pinky flowers. So I always like wearing this one when it comes to autumn, and it's such a lovely lightweight soft viscose. I usually just pair it with a pair of tights underneath, and that works really well for that kind of transitional weather. So yeah, that is my second version. I have made a version of the Cassie AP dress in a corduroy fabric. It's kind of like a lightweight baby cord style fabric, and I do really like that version, but it does feel a bit more bulky to wear, and I just think this dress works so well in a drapey viscose fabric, which is why I've made a few versions and I really enjoy wearing them all when it comes to winter time. Oh, and I should mention actually, if you go on the I Am Patterns website, there are some really cool hacks available for this pattern too. So you can make a summary version of the Cassie AP dress, because in the one of the pattern hacks they show you how to make this dress short sleeved, which I think is really cool, and I haven't actually tried that yet myself, but I would like to try that in the future, and I think that would work really well to make a summary version of the Cassie AP in a viscose too. So yeah, quite a versatile pattern, this one. So I've got one final top dress pattern to share with you that I think works really well with woven viscose, and this is the pattern that I think of as being quite a wintry dress pattern. But actually I've made two versions of it. One is very wintry and the other one is a summery hack. So I think it's quite a versatile pattern, and it's one that I thought deserved a mention in this video. And the pattern is this one here. It is the Wilder Gown pattern by Friday Pattern Co. So it's a really pretty top and dress pattern with a couple of interesting details to it, particularly how the neck is sewn. So it's a raglan sleeved bodice, and then you make it using these quite wide top pieces of the bodice pattern pieces, and you add a channel to them and then cinch them all in to create this gathered neckline, which is a bit different and creates a really pretty feature. And you can see you can make it in different sleeve lengths, and also you can make it as like a top or a dress with one sort of gathered tier or with two gathered tiers. And I think this pattern works really well in a viscose because of all the gathering And because the necktie, there's quite a lot of fabric gathered there too. I think if you made it into bulkier fabric, it would end up too bulky. At least I'm not sure I'd feel comfortable wearing it in a really bulky fabric. So I think this one works really well in a viscose, and it has a lovely movement then to the dress too. So I'll show you my versions. First of all, this is my wintry version. And I actually kind of made this version as a wearable twill to see if I like the pattern or not. I use this fabric, which is a viscose challis from Rainbow Fabrics. It's a slightly more heavier weight viscose challis though. It's not super light and soft, but I thought it had a really pretty print with lots of lovely colourful floral details. And I went for the mini skirt version of the wild gown. As you can see, it's just the one tier gathered skirt. And for a bit of fun, I decided to make a black necktie to really showcase that neckline detail. And I really love that detail actually. And I made the sleeves long, so I lengthened them to come right down to my wrists, just to make it really nice and wintry. So this is the version I really reach for in winter, and I'll wear it with a pair of black tights and maybe some chunky boots or something. And actually it's got quite a loose fitting feel to it. And I wasn't sure if it would feel like me, but actually I do really enjoy wearing it. But I'm glad that I made it in a viscose, because I think if I made it in a thicker fabric, it'll be too much bulk around the neck for me and it might bother me a little bit. So yeah, that is my winter version, and I'll put a picture of me wearing it so you can see what that one looks like on. And then I went on to sew up a summery hack of the wilder gown, which came together really nicely, and I really love this summery version too. And this hack was inspired by Alice, who is the Polka Dot Palace over on Instagram. I saw her do this hack first and I really wanted to recreate it. And you basically omit the sleeves from the wild gown pattern to create a cute summery halter neck dress. So here is my version. As you can see, there's no sleeves. Instead of adding on the sleeves around this seam here, you basically just turn under the fabric twice and stitch in place to finish the armholes. And then the top here has the gathering at the front and the back, but the raglan sleeve gathering isn't added, so it's a bit lighter weight around your neck, which I think is perfect for a summery dress. And then instead of adding on a gathered skirt, you just extend the pattern piece from the top down and widen them to create a really swishy dress that's quite nice and simple. Really easy to wear and really pretty with this little tie detail and the gathering at the front and back. And for my summery version, I use this lovely viscose. It's another one that came from Rainbow Fabrics. This one is a little bit lighter weight and a little bit softer than my wintry wilder gown version. So it's perfect for a swishy summer dress. It has a lovely movement, this one, when I'm wearing it. And it's perfect for really hot weather. And I'll put a picture up of me wearing this one too, so you can see what this one looks like on. It's a really nice simple hack and doesn't take too much fabric, and quite a nice simple sew as well. So those are all of my top dress patterns for sewing with woven viscose. So I hope you've enjoyed hearing all about them and seeing some of my versions too. I'll make sure to link all of the patterns down below, and I'll also link any fabrics that I've shown that are still available. If you've enjoyed this video, please do give it a thumbs up. And if you're new to my channel, please do subscribe and press the bell icon too, so you're notified when I bring my future videos out. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely day, and I'll see you again soon. Bye!